Hello there everyone, and welcome to a new Let's Play. Now this one's a little different. You saw from the start that this is going to be Final Fantasy VII. Despite that, this is actually going to be fully post-commentary. Now you might be asking, why is this post-commentary? Well, of course it is an RPG, and the way RPGs work is there's a lot of random battles that kind of slow down the pace of things. And even though I am playing the PS4 version, which is actually super sweet because it has the ability to turn off random encounters, it would make it easier for me to edit them out. So for the beginning, that's not too apparent, but definitely later on it becomes a thing. So I just say, before we continue, this intro here feels so out of place compared to everything else in this game. It looks like something that would be in a much earlier Final Fantasy game, rather than Final Fantasy VII. So as you can see here, this is the PS4 version, so we have a special movie option there, which we're actually going to take a look at, because why not? It's there, and this is one of the reasons why I actually really wanted to do this Let's Play. Not just for me, but for everyone. The Final Fantasy remake, Final Fantasy VII remake, is coming out. I am unbelievably excited for it. But I've never actually played Final Fantasy VII fully. I'll get into that later. And I know there's a lot of people who also haven't. So I kind of want to show it off to people. And I mean, there's so many Final Fantasy VII playthroughs out there. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to do anything super different. But I kind of want to do it in the eyes of a well-informed newcomer, if you will. Which is, I don't think, something that there's many up there. You know, there's not many Let's Plays that are like that. But, and then of course, Clouds and Smash Bros. So I do kind of want to, like, there's been a lot of Final Fantasy VII hype lately. I just want to bring it all together, you know? As I said, I'm unbelievably excited for the VII remake, because as I said, 7 is, I feel, the only Final Fantasy game that truly deserves a remake. And the reason for that is Final Fantasy VII is a very, very outdated game. I know that's something that people might think is controversial, but honestly, I do feel like Final Fantasy VII, out of every Final Fantasy game, is the one that needed the remake the most. Everything, you know, like 1 to 5 have been done, you know, 1 to 6 have been remaked perfectly with the GBA versions. 8 and 9, I feel, graphically and gameplay-wise, can pretty much stand on their own. And then 10 onwards is, you know, they're all modern enough. But I do feel like 7 is a bit of an oddball, because it was a sort of a point where they were transitioning, they were transitioning between the 2D and the 3D. So there's a few things in there that are just a bit weird. Now, as you can see, here's the controller for the PS4 version. You do have boosters on the sticks, which I will be using, not often, but I will be. So, one thing I will say, this part here is actually going to be, there's going to be about 5 or 6, no, probably more. There's going to be about 5 or 6 parts that were done in one playthrough, and then the rest will be on another playthrough, a better playthrough. I lost the first 3 hours or so of footage, just from computers and stuff being moved and stuff. So, all that's going to happen is I'm going to play through the beginning very quickly, but don't worry, I haven't missed any of the important stuff that I've been told to get through friends and other playthroughs and stuff. So, don't worry if I miss anything in the first bit. It's after I get to Aerith's house, that's when the cut happens to my actual playthrough. This was just a quickly done replay through. So I guess my history with Final Fantasy VII, I was a Nintendo kid growing up. It wasn't until the PS3 that I got a PlayStation. Despite this, being a kid who, you know, grew up in the 90s and early 2000s, it was impossible to not know about Final Fantasy VII. Between the parodies, between it being everywhere, between all the PlayStation, you know, kids in the school talking about it, it really was everywhere. Especially being a kid that went to, like, anime conventions and stuff, it was one of those iconic things. And even if I never played it, this symbol here was super iconic. Midgar and the Final Fantasy VII logo. The music, not as much. I know a lot of people, when they heard it in the Smash Bros. Trailer, they knew immediately. I wasn't that informed about it. I was a lot more, you know, because the first time I played Final Fantasy VII was actually in, I think, 2011, 2012 maybe, where I discovered that I had a computer that could actually run a PlayStation 1 emulator at like 80% speed, which I was like, damn, that's fast enough for me. So I decided to emulate and try out Final Fantasy VII for the first time, to which I was amazed that this is what it looked like. Now, mind you, if you're playing this on an actual, you know, PS1 with an actual CRT, it looks quite different because of the fact that this is HD. You can see very, very clearly exactly where the, the models look crisp, which I actually do like. I don't think it looks bad. It looks better than the backgrounds. Like, in battle, it looks really good, actually, I think. It looks a lot better than it did originally. But the big problem is that with this version, the backgrounds aren't redone, I'm pretty sure, at all. So meaning it looks very jarring. You can tell where the 3D model ends and the background begins, because the backgrounds are all hand-painted and, like, actual just 2D images that you can run on like a plane, right? Which is an amazing technique. Like, this is just a 2D image that I'm running on. I never would have understood that as a kid. Like, that was something I didn't learn about until pretty recently. But it's if you're playing it on the original, and of course I can't talk to him right there for some reason, if you're playing this on an original TV, on an original console, it would be a lot harder to tell because of the blur and just because of how the CRT works with the bleeding and stuff. It would look a lot clearer that it was, like, it looked like one coherent thing. But, of course, on a PS4, on an HD TV, is what it's like. And and this is me being witty. Sorry. I was like, okay. Spoilers. So, that's the thing, I guess. Being of the internet age and of the gamer variety, of course I know the story of Final Fantasy VII. Who doesn't at this point? However, what I don't know is a lot of the major story moments, which we'll be getting to later. I basically knew everything that happened in Midgar because it's so well known on the internet. But then a lot of the stuff past that, I'm like, wow, this is in the game? That's really surprising. Barrett here, I've always loved Barrett. Something about his just huge black man design I really love. Now, is the fact that he's, one of the few black people in the game, that he's an eco-terrorist, is that possibly the best thing? Not really, but I do believe in terms of just simply any person of color representation in a Final Fantasy game, he's probably one of the best, and that's saying something, because I recently, and I know people have told me to not, but I recently started playing Final Fantasy 13. I know. I was actually, it was funny, it was a trade-in sale day at EB Games, which is our GameStop, where you can trade in games, and then you would be able to get a lot of money back, which you can then use to get on certain new titles, right? So I brought in, like, Chibi Robo, Mario Party 10, and one of my Tomodachi Life games, because my sister has one, so I left hers, but, sold mine. And for that, I was able to buy Bravely Default, Final Fantasy 13, Final Fantasy 13-2, and Lightning Returns for less than Bravely Default on its own. So I kind of would like to look at it as I was paid to get them with Bravely Default. I know a lot of people do like Final Fantasy 13, but man, Saz in that game, I don't know, man. I'm looking at him and I'm just like, is this okay? Is the afro with the bird in it, like, I think that's a racial thing, But, I don't feel like it's done out of spite. I think it's just done out of old racial things, Unlike, I feel like, a lot of American and Western, stereotypical stuff. This one's done, with the nicest intentions, but it's still pretty bad. But no, I love Barrett. He's actually such a cool character. And his redesign in the 7 remake, I feel, it works a lot better, especially when you compare it to his Advent Children design, which I really didn't like. When you compare it to that, it's like, it's a good one. I do miss his super triangular body, if you look at his upper body, it's huge. This guy is huge jacked man. It's like, he's huge, and they try to accomplish that as realistically as possible with his remake design. But it's still, I kind of would have liked him to be quite a bit beefier, I wanted him to be, barrel-chested, not, just a guy with muscles. But yeah, so here we have Biggs and Wedge, who are a bit of a Final Fantasy series in-joke now. And I guess for those of you who don't know, the Final Fantasy series, despite them not being connected worlds at all, there's a few small connections between them. Like, there's a connection between 7 and 10, there's a connection between 2 and 4, but like for the most part, the worlds are completely unrelated to each other. But what they do have to sort of tie them together are like running gags such as Sid, or in this case Biggs and Wedge, and familiar character types and stuff. But Biggs and Wedge are actually not Jessie though, she's just kind of on her own. She's cute though, I like her. Biggs and Wedge were in Final Fantasy VI. I'm pretty sure they're in 8. I'm not sure about that. And I think they're in 10 as recruitable players. But for those of you who don't really know, that's actually a reference to Star Wars. Biggs and Wedge were the two characters that Luke, I think it was, weren't they, he grew up with them on Tatooine. Was he on Tatooine? I don't know, man. But no, they're running jokes. They're taken from the Star Wars. And that was an example of, I'm pretty sure, the translator for Final Fantasy VI, his name was Ted Woolsey, and then it sadly got mistranslated as Vix and Wedge in the first one, but it's Biggs and Wedge. Actually, well, if he was mistranslated, I don't know if he did that, but Ted Woolsey was the guy who sort of made Final Fantasy's tone what it is, I feel. He translated, what was it, 6, I think he did 4, 6... Well, because that's all they got originally. And he gave it a sort of a lighter tone than a lot of people would have expected. And I know a lot of people really dislike him now, because there's the whole internet debates about localization and stuff. I think he did a wonderful job, because he made games a lot more lighthearted, you know, than they should be, which I preferred as a kid and still kind of prefer now, you know? Like, I know a lot of people, they look at Cloud here, and they're probably like, oh man, here he is, John Emo-man, you know, doing all of his emo stuff. But he's really not. He's actually quite like a determined, normal hero type, you know? It was only later when he started to be characterized as Mopey McMoper Pants. But, no, it's like, I was really surprised that he's, you know, he's pretty, I mean, he's stoic, I'd still say, but he's definitely not emo, you know? He's not always sad. He's just always quiet, and I think that's fine. You know, it's sort of like his characterization in Smash Bros. Is kind of like, it's perfect, where he can crack a smile and stuff, but for the most part, he's pretty quiet. Can we just talk about how Cloud's in Smash Bros. And how whenever I think about that, I get like a little feeling in my gut, like, oh my god, it actually happened? That's the craziest. But no, I'm just really excited to see how they modernize all this. And, like, are we gonna get every single, you know, sort of character and stuff brought back and put into, like, 3D and stuff? Because, I mean, like, the enemy design for 7 is really interesting. Some of them you look at and you have no idea what you're looking at. Like, this makes sense. It's a cool robot dude that's, like, walking. It's like a Metal Gear kind of, but has, like, machine guns. Like, that sort of design I'm not super worried about. But, like, what were those dudes we were fighting with, like, the claws? They're, like, blue, and are they wearing, is that a mask that's a one eye, or is that, like, what is that? And I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with all these character designs and how they modernize them. And that's why I'm really excited to see what happens in the future. But, so, this is the start of the game, though, otherwise known as the Mako Reactor Bombing #1. Spoilers, we're going to be doing it later. Also, I guess I'm going to say spoilers warning for the whole thing. Like, there's going to be some things that are kind of unavoidable, you know? I don't know. I'm just going to talk about them. I'm not sure. At this point, I haven't beaten the game myself. I just want to get these out, because I want to try and do these every Saturday or so, you know, do it weekly. I like the Super Gaming Brothers way of doing it. So, this Mako bombing part, Mako reactor bombing, also, this is never explained, I'm pretty sure. This isn't just a reactor, like, what's it also? I think that line was mistranslated, or maybe is a plot line that never got brought up. If it is, hey, you know what, feel free to correct me in the comments, and since these are going up, like, weekly, I'll be able to go back and say, okay, you guys corrected me on this, and I'll feel free to answer any questions and stuff. So I've actually done this section of the game probably 5 or 6 times now, just this section alone, between losing save files, having to re-record, all this stuff, and it's a good intro, I feel. At first I was like, wow, this game just throws you into it, I'm not sure about that, but now I'm like, no, this is a good intro. This game's entire prologue, if you will, is like, it's one of the best in my opinion. The entire Midgar section is just, it's linear, but unlike a lot of linear openings, it's still really interesting. Like, you know, I guess comparably, it could be looked at as not Final Fantasy, but Kingdom Hearts 2. Its opening is terrible. It's kind of similar. You're in a unique place. You're playing as a new character, kind of dropped into the world, and it's linear. But unlike that, this is fun. It doesn't feel limited at all. It just feels like part of the game. And there's so much to do and see here. It's a real darn shame that it's not longer. But according to the VII remake, we're going to be getting it longer. So there's a bit of a mistranslation here where it says, like, attack while the tail's down, it'll counter, which makes a lot of people confused. Do you attack when its tail's down, or it will counter? Or if you attack, right here, be careful, attack while its tail is up. It's gonna counterattack with its laser. So what he's saying is, attack while the tail's up, or he'll counterattack with the laser. Which is wrong. It's if you attack when the tail's up, it will counterattack with the laser. So you're not supposed to attack it while its tail's up. That's an example of this game's really shoddy translation. And there are well, not really shoddy. It's actually very well done for the time. But there's a few lines that come up every now and then that you're just like, are you sure about that? Some of them do get fixed here. One notable one, which I did try to show off, I'm pretty sure. They did do a little bit of stuff with the because this is based on the PC version. It's not based on the original PS1 version. Unlike the PC version's initial release, it does have the proper music, which is good. Because the original PC version put on Steam was actually originally had terrible MIDI versions of the music, which weren't too bad. But then if you listen to the MIDI version of Sephiroth's theme, not Sephiroth's thing, but One Winged Angel, you'll know exactly, you're like, oh, this sounds very wrong. It just sounds entirely wrong. But this is based on the PC version, so you got the PC version's boosters, as said before. But you also got just a few small changes to the game. I think some visual effects were changed to make them less seizure-y, like things that would, you don't want kids to have seizures, so you're going to try and avoid that. That actually happens with a lot of re-released games, which I don't think anyone should have a problem with, but apparently some people do, because if a game caused kids to have a seizure as a kid, they should keep it now. I don't get the logic behind that. I say change that if people are reporting seizures from, like when you die in Zelda 2 and it flashes crazily. But that was the first boss, and it leads us straight into a frickin' countdown timer. And it's just like, okay, this is going crazy. Again, it doesn't hold your hand, which as a kid, absolutely terrifying. Would not recommend. But now, I'm looking, and I mean, kids were able to do it fine back then, but now I look at it and I'm like, this is good. This is what I want from more games. None of this stupid extended intros. And the weird thing is, there is a very in-depth tutorial on how to play the game, but it's done after this section, so you're not going to need it, really. I mean, like, it's weird. So, the countdown here, you're not going to super worry about it. Like, I never had a problem with it. In my many playthroughs, I've always come up with a lot of time left. You'd have to really be screwing around. And maybe there's stuff here that I don't know about, because being a Final Fantasy game, there's a lot of missable secrets. Now, for the most part, they're not too worrying. Like, there might be a potion, there might be something, there might even be a unique equipment item, but for the most part, I don't feel like I missed any big ones. And even if I did, I'm not super worried, unless it's, like, missable and, like, would then give me an achievement or something. I don't know. But, you get enough time, which is good. But it's interesting, like, I really do wish more games would start off just like this, where you're just thrown into it, And I don't know what happens if you don't leave Jessie, if you leave Jessie here. I don't know if she'll just die, caught in the explosion or whatever, or maybe she'll call you over, but I just can't help I have to help her. Also, you can't climb the ladder when she's climbing up, maybe. I don't know. Couldn't grab on there. I've never left her there. And there's a lot of things in this game like that, where, you're given, like, a choice, if you will, and I've never taken the other way to see it. And I think a lot of people are in the same boat, where it's just like, you just don't know what would happen, because, like, why would you leave Jessie behind? I'm sure there might be something later where it's just like, yeah, she'll save you. Maybe she won't. Maybe there's an item that she gives you later that if you don't, she won't do it for her. I don't know. But, yeah, no, it's interesting that there's so many things that I feel like, and I'm sure someone in the world has left her there, but I've never, and I don't think I ever will, because it's just, I don't think I could live with myself if I did that. So I guess let's talk a bit about the gameplay. I mean, it's a Final Fantasy game. If you played Final Fantasy, you kind of know what you're getting into. The big new system is the limit system, which as you do damage or take damage, your limit gauge rises, which lets you do special attacks. And of course, you can save that if you want to for bosses and stuff. It's a really good system that's really simple. And that's the key. It's just a system that just kind of adds on to the normal Final Fantasy gameplay that gives you access to special moves and stuff without necessarily doing it in a way that's too convoluted. I feel that's where 8 lost me, and it's funny because 8 is the only Final Fantasy I actually have in disc form, and that's because my dad found all 4 discs at a flea market for $10. So 8 felt a little too convoluted, and 9 was like a return to form with the trance system, kind of working similar to this. But it's a cool system, and I very much like it, and the way they handle it in Smash Bros. Is actually really cool. So this section, and of course this is going to be very dated by the time the 7 remake comes out, because I'll be talking about it, pre-release. But this section looks like it's going to actually be extended longer in the game, where you're actually going to be sneaking out of there, which will be very interesting. Also, I love the realistic fire effect, which they have to cut away from for a brief second to go back to the pre-rendered backdrop, and you can see the fire actually change. It's hilarious. I love it. You can sort of see how this game was made, which is the interesting thing, I gotta say, though, the backgrounds are so beautifully done. Like, I really hope that they are able to capture it, capture its look. And actually, in the new Dissidia Arcade, I will say, they've been able to capture the look of PS1 FMV, as well as, freaking, like, the backgrounds for, like, the Alexandria stage from Final Fantasy IX. It looks so good. Oh, hey, Flower Girl. This is an iconic scene. So, at this point, I just said no. You can talk to her. And I think on my main playthrough, I did do a full talk to her, which I'm sorry about. It looks like you'll be fighting throughout this entire section, though, in the remake, because there's a battle there. You don't, but here's the thing. Like, you don't see these places, I'm pretty sure, any time after this opening. And then in my initial playthrough, I did fight everyone to level up. But here, all you have to do, if you just keep saying later, you can avoid all these fights. Because at this point, I'm just trying to get through this intro as fast as I can, because I've already played up to this point, getting as much experience and items and stuff as I can. So that kind of sucks, but at the same time, oh well. This is cool, though. So he hears the train, and because of that, he hops off. This is iconic. The whole train thing is super cool, and I think it's one of the, like, trains aren't, I guess, iconic with Final Fantasy VII, but I feel like they should be almost, just because of how they work in with it. And it's funny, because then like I was saying, I was playing 13 for the first time, and it's really obvious how much they tried to copy 7's opening with them all on the train and stuff in a train heist. And it just doesn't work well. I'm all down for homages and stuff, but I just didn't feel it, man. But yeah. So why am I playing Final Fantasy VII aside from all the stuff? Well, I did want to do another Final Fantasy game. I love the series, and with 15 coming out and all that, and I'm probably not going to do a Let's Play of 15 just off the bat. Doing a blind RPG Let's Play is recipe for disaster, especially on new ones. On some older ones, it's fine, but yeah, I don't know, man. And I really want to do 5 sometime in the future, because that's a game that I feel a lot of people don't play. But there's a couple reasons for me wanting to do this, between me, myself wanting to play it, between knowing that my friend Digi wants the footage for his Who Dat series, and just between also the fact that he's in Smash Bros. And the remake is coming out. I just want to make it, make more people know more about it. And Barrett swears right there. Boom, he said a bunch of symbols. That's one of the reasons why Final Fantasy VII isn't on Super Nintendo, I remember. They said, well, now that we're no longer on Nintendo, let's just go and have fun with it, So, wake up, we're moving out, so we gotta go and try and get back and act like nothing's happened, So, it's an interesting, like, how Cloud is just as new as you are, almost. Like, when I first played this, I assumed that all these characters had some previous, commitments and stuff to Cloud. But it's pretty obvious. Also, yo, girl, don't just, I mean, Jessie's really cute, and especially when you look at her Final Fantasy VII Remake design, she's real cute, and I really like her. But she really comes on strong on Cloud. Like, really. I just love, like, look at the NPCs. Look how low, like, really low poly they are, and you can see a lot of them. But that's where the video cut out because I actually had to go somewhere. So, thank you all for watching, guys. Final Fantasy VII Part 1, post-commentary, semi-blind, I don't know what I'm going to be calling it. This is going to be just a casual thing of me talking over the footage, and just hoping to spread the game out a bit more with people, my thoughts on it, playing it sort of blind recently and all this stuff. And I hope to see you all next time for some more stuff with it. Thanks for watching. Ciao.